That is one big, strong lady.
You are being a role model for dealing with a child that's transgender.
Absolutely.
And that's, that warms my heart, particularly as a black man.
Oh, no. This is, of course, another very strong woman is Tulsi Gabbard, our national security advisor that just raised up a whole bunch of eyebrows as we are starting the discussions about bigger disclosures with the biowarfare gain-of-function research programs in this country that have been previously covered up, that have been lied about as there actually might be some real legitimate accountability, as previously we were denied it because some government agencies didn't want to be embarrassed. Yep, you heard that correctly, as we have a very eye-opening interview from Tulsi Gabbard, as a lot of other things are really moving and grooving within this new administration, highlighting some very impressive changes that I think are for the better, and I will be discussing in this particular video, especially on the heels of what just RFK Jr. said yesterday. We'll talk about that as well here. But in the making of this video, we just got breaking news that Mike Waltz is out as a national security advisor, as we are hearing that he was predominantly bunting heads with Tulsi Gabbard, as of course he and his underling, his deputy, Alex Wong, have been told to leave the Oval Office and no longer will be needing the assistance and help of the President of the United States, essentially saying, "You're fired." As of course, this guy was a big-time Iran neocon hawk, and Tulsi Gabbard wasn't. This is Tulsi Gabbard just did a very impressive interview with Megyn Kelly. If you haven't watched it, I definitely recommend watching it. We'll link it down in the description below. But she came out and she definitely dropped some major truth bombs here, specifically about Dr. Fauci, his preemptive pardons, the work that he was doing, and the lies that he was blatantly telling everyone. As she's coming out and saying, yeah, Dr. Fauci absolutely perjured himself. Now, we all know about this, but now being within the government and actually seeing the receipts and actually providing more documentation, providing more evidence, where now it is undeniable. Now you have an open and cut case here. Now we also have conversations about, maybe Biden didn't sign those pardons. Maybe it was a machine. Maybe that makes them not really that applicable here when it comes to crimes against humanity that I believe Dr. Fauci committed against the general public. Now, there's a lot to unravel in this Megyn Kelly interview. They got into foreign policy, they got into Iran, they got into Iraq, and it was really a good comprehensive interview that I watched. But here's the tidbit here. Here's the little piece of information with what they're working on. Because again, Tulsi Gabbard, she's a big figurehead within this government. She's not just calling the shots here. She's also, of course, going to be implementing a lot of the changes that she's talking about now that are really big and bombastic.
But the thing that we are working with Jay Bhattacharya, the new NIH director, on with, as well as Secretary Kennedy, is looking at the gain-of-function research that in the case of the Wuhan lab, as well as many of these other biolabs around the world.
That's the key part here, because they're in a lot of places, usually the poorest, most corrupted places like Ukraine. And this type of research, again, was kind of mainlined after the passage of the Patriot Act. That's when Dr. Fauci got his kind of heyday and was able to do whatever he wanted to do when it came to geoengineering biological forms of war in the most horrible, awful, most dangerous, irresponsible ways.
Was actually U.S. funded and leads to this dangerous kind of research that in many examples has resulted in either a pandemic or some other major health crisis.
Well, let me ask you specifically.
I'm looking at you, Plum Island. I'm looking at you. Ticks and AIDS and all this other stuff here. As there's a lot of medical professionals that are coming out and saying, there's no reason to do this gain-of-function research unless you're just trying to wipe out the planet many times over. Now, there's some people in the medical community saying, no, we got to develop this because it's going to happen naturally and we got to find ways to deal with it. And there's a lot of other people saying, There's no frickin' way that would ever happen. And I think there's an argument to be made for that, especially what we have seen with the coof and how there were strains of AIDS and pangolin and frickin' all these bats and all these other things that would have never kind of naturally come together in this kind of genetic sequence that absolutely, according to a lot of the experts, was genetically modified and engineered in a Frankenstein type of way that was more sinister than a lot of people believed it to be. Since, of course, then it just kind of escaped from the lab there. It just kind of walked out there and impacted the world as they tried to make it as infectious as possible. And they also try to make diseases as deadly as possible.
Because we already know that EcoHealth Alliance was partnering with this Wuhan lab to do gain-of-function research.
That's right.
EcoHealth Alliance tied in with the CIA, Peter Daszak, Dr. Fauci. It was all one big group. We all knew about it. And then you talked about that, censored on social media. If we had this conversation on Google, on YouTube, when it was happening, when we were, fortune telling everything that the corporate media was trying to hide from you and suppress from you, when that was happening, boom, gone, channel deleted. And that's one reason, out of many reasons, I created my own platform. One of my platforms is lukeunfiltered.com. If you haven't signed up for that yet, what are you doing? It's quick, it's easy, it's simple, other than you needing to check the spam. Just check your spam, make sure you get the login credentials. You click the link down in the description below of this video, you click right here, you sign up for whatever you could afford, and then you get really cool offers of value. I'm going to be shooting more behind-the-scenes content soon. I got to do a meditation. I haven't had a meditation in a while. I need it. I'm going to do one for the group there, and I am talking to all of you guys in the Telegram channel. I'm awaiting some questions. You guys also get the ability to videotape yourselves, ask me a question, and I will play the question here on this particular broadcast, and I will engage in your question or your inquiry, but just by becoming a member of lukeunfiltered.com. So you get to talk to me one-on-one on Telegram. You get to send me a video message. I will play that video message here for everybody. And also you get really cool, awesome in real life meetups like we're doing this Sunday here in South Florida. We are doing a range day. I went after one of the best self-defense training range companies in the United States. And I said, hey, is it cool if I invite some of my friends here? They were like, yeah, totally fine. I did. I'm going to take the class with you. We're going to take a really fun, awesome, challenging class here in South Florida, and can't recommend it enough. To come to this class, you sign up as a member of lukeunfiltered.com, and then we all take this class together. It's going to be really fun this Sunday. And all the details are kind of explained there in the description. So check that out and come out. It's definitely fun to meet like-minded individuals and get to know each other. Now, let's continue on with this interview because, again, this is something that we had the head of DNI coming out confirming and saying that she's working on right now, that she's going to be releasing to the general public. This is big. This is vast. This is huge. Because this is going to, of course, have a lot of people say, we're going to need some restitution. We're going to need some justice. We're going to need some accountability. We're going to need the people who worked and did this and lied to us about this every step of the way. Yeah, those guys are going to have to be responsible for their actions here. And we're going to want charges. We're going to want jail. We're going to want some kind of justice.
We just have never been able to have somebody say, it was that exact experiment that led to this COVID bug. But have we gotten there? What's the new thing that you're digging in on?
We are working on that with Jay Bhattacharya and look forward to being able to share that hopefully very soon.
Okay.
That specific
link.
Correct, between the gain of function research and what we saw with COVID-19.
That's huge. That's big here, specifically when we're now finally able to understand. Okay, yeah, they took the AIDS one, they took the bat thing, pangolin thing, scientists around the world. And this is the kind of evil cover-up that led to more tremendous human life loss. Scientists and doctors were like, well, we don't know what we're working with. We don't know what's going on here. They had the ingredients list the whole time. They knew exactly what it was. They knew exactly how it would impact people. They had studies on it for months, if not years on end, saying this does this, this does this, this is what you could expect here, this is what we're seeing here, this could actually stop here. And you know what they did? Instead of sharing that data to allow us to problem solve, to allow us to actually try to deal with this in an honest, open, real kind of conversation way that would have saved lives. They said, nope, closing the books, nothing happened. You're a crazy conspiracy theorist, and we're going to destroy your life for even talking the truth about here. That right there, next level type of evil, vindictive, demonic, bastardized behavior from some of the most cruelest, nastiest, disgusting people on the face of this earth that deserve jail, minimally.
I mean, that would be extraordinary because just so the audience knows, if that's true, if it was Peter Daszak's research with the Wuhan so-called bat lady that caused this pandemic, then we did fund it. Then Anthony Fauci helped fund the pandemic.
The thing that he denied over and over and over to Senator Rand Paul's questioning.
That's right, under oath.
Under oath, exactly. So is it any wonder that he sought a preemptive pardon for anything during a certain period of time by President Biden before he left office?
Yeah, that time, 2014. You know why? Because that's when they had the biolab weapons in Ukraine. And it's going to be probably surprising for a lot of people to find out, oh, this COOF virus first was engineered in Ukraine and then sent over to China? What was China doing here in all of this? As of course, they were cooperating and working with the CIA, Echo Health Alliance, Peter Daszak, Dr. Fauci. As the CIA essentially was calling a lot of the shots here and doing a lot of the very sinister work here.
Strong-armed and smeared people like Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, anybody who came out and said, I don't know if that's natural. This actually smacks of lab.
And the reason why this is so important is not just what happened in the past, it's because this gain-of-function research is happening in biolabs around the world. I got attacked, and I think you saw this, we've probably talked about it on your show before, when I warned against US-funded biolabs in Ukraine when the Russia-Ukraine war kicked off for this very reason. Who knows what kinds of pathogens are in these labs, and if released, could create another COVID-like pandemic.
Yep, and that's exactly what they're working on. As the Russians were coming out and saying, hey, there's biolab weapons facilities in Ukraine. And the U.S. media was like, fake news, nothing happening, I don't know what you're talking about. Tulsi Gabbard is now confirming it. As the bat lady, she's still around. And you know what? She just found a new virus that could infect human beings, also a COOF virus. As this is the type of insanity that is still continuing. This is an article from just a few days ago, February 28th, 2025. As Chinese researchers, led by the virologist whose work had fueled concerns about a possible COOF lab leak. No, it was the lab leak. Let's just be real with ourselves, okay? The person who made the COOF first version virus made another version of the virus, as of course this is the kind of threats against the world here that are important to bring up. The Russian military general that actually whistleblowed and talked about the Ukrainian biolab weapons facilities, yeah, he was just assassinated by the CIA a few months ago too. By the Ukrainians a few months ago too, with an explosive scooter outside of his house. Again, one thing that in hindsight to all of this that's going to be very incredulous is going to be the behavior of the corporate media and social media. Because every step of the way, it didn't take a genius. Like we were talking about it day one. We were saying man-made bioweapon out there to the general public. We were saying that day one when the government was like, don't worry, it's fine. You don't need no mask. Go out there, hug a Asian man. Yeah. Literally, there's leftist liberals doing that. But now a serious conversation needs to happen here because Donald Trump's saying, you know those pardons that Biden signed? Yeah, they might just be null and void because it wasn't Biden who actually signed them. It was a robot. It was, if you look at all the signatures, they are absolutely all identical. There is no discernment between them. And some would argue it would be up to the Supreme Court. It would be up to a court of law to determine, yeah, you know what? They didn't actually physically sign it. And a robot did. Biden maybe didn't even know what was going on. Maybe he didn't even know who was in the room. But the question remains here specifically is there might be a potential way. And again, some people are saying, no, he wanted to sign it. Again, I would say he was not of sound mind. If you're not of sound mind and you got robots signing stuff for you, maybe it's not really you doing it. There's an argument to be made here that's going to be up for interpretation. And it might unravel the Dr. Fauci pardon, which I think would be the right, proper move to make here. Otherwise, I still believe he should be shamed. He should be exposed. We should be getting all of this information out there to the general public about the origins of this, because people are still dealing with this, by the way. People are still getting procedures for this, by the way. As China came out and they blamed the United States for doing all this. But again, China participated with the CIA. Echo Health Alliance said, come on in, guys. There was some rules here saying, yeah, you can't really do gain of function here in the United States. Barack Obama, interestingly, passed some laws right before he left political office. And then when Trump went to political office the first time around, there were some members of his administration that were part of the swamp that just turned it around and allowed Dr. Fauci to do whatever he wanted to do. And then they're like, yeah, we can't do it on American soil. We'll just go over to China and we'll give China everything. And when you go to China, just like any business goes to China, the Chinese government controls everything. So the Chinese government knew exactly what was going on here. And this was a direct partnership between the Chinese government, the CIA, Echo Health Alliance, Peter Daszak, and Dr. Fauci that all orchestrated this. And this is why the Chinese government said, you know what? If you want to fly from Wuhan to Beijing or Shanghai or Hong Kong, no, you can't. But if you want to fly from Wuhan to Italy for your made in Italy products, yeah, that's totally cool. Yeah, go ahead, guys. Get out. As they hoarded a whole bunch of PPE. And the conversation definitely was very interesting because they covered up the origins of this. As they said, oh, investigator, you want to come? No, come. Then they cleaned everything up, and they literally went into the wet market, cleaned everything up, and they're like, it came from the wet market. Look, it's pretty clear. Don't look at this factory here. Don't look at the factory here. Don't look. It produced the same sickness, but don't look. No, nothing to see here, folks. Nothing to see here. Keep it moving. But this big bombshell interview continues. And again, this is big. This is huge.
And for that, I was called a Russian asset. You're, trumpeting Putin's talking points.
Same. Washington Post literally said, oh, you're Russian fake news. You're being paid by the Russians. No, not true at all here. We were literally just going off and talking about the truth here that now will be officially codified by this government.
Points all of this nonsense simply for speaking the truth and stating facts that, by the way, are still on U.S. Embassy Ukraine's website today about how the U.S. has funded these biolabs in Ukraine. But my point is, in order to prevent another COVID-like pandemic or another major health incident that could affect us in the world, we have to end this gain of function research and provide the evidence that shows exactly why and how it's in our best interest, the American people's best interest, to bring about an end to it.
Yeah, absolutely. That goes without saying, specifically what just happened beforehand when it comes to the deliberate, in my opinion, release of this sickness on the general public there. That absolutely ruined poor middle-class people all over the world, causing a huge, tremendous economic shift as we saw one of the biggest, larger transfers of wealth in recorded human history. Now, Donald Trump, when it comes to this issue, let's be real with ourselves, doesn't have the best track record, but he was dealing with a very difficult situation, as now I think he is making right on some of the wrongs and mistakes that he legitimately made. And a lot of people were worried. They're like, well, Donald Trump actually tried to get justice for the coup and everything that happened in response to it. And it looks like, yeah. You look at the White House's website, coup.gov. It's incredible. It's absolutely the government now correctly releasing an honest version of events, specifically talking about this Wuhan Institute of Virology in an honest and real way. This is not only setting the record straight, this is setting the history straight that, of course, they thought that they could get away with, that they thought that they could just push through, that they thought they could just lie and engineer in a way where we would forget, that we would just not care about. Dr. Fauci is, in my opinion, one of the most cruelest, evilest people on the face of this earth. And this man deserves to have his reputation ruined. There's people that had his candles. He had his own candles. That's how vain he is. There's people worshiping him, all right? Fauci was a saint to the woke liberal world order. Why? Because he brought upon a sickness on the world that he had his fingerprints on from the very beginning, that he lied through his teeth about from the very beginning. And then he implemented policies that took the lives of more and more and more people. Levels of evilness, of cruelty. It's not just beagles and foster children that, of course, he affected. He destroyed the world many times over, and the amount of death and destruction should be comparable to many historical despots and dictators around the world. This man should be compared to Mao Zedong, that funny mustache guy, especially with the cumulative amount of human sacrifice that he has committed personally himself, according to my own personal opinion. Sign up to lookunfiltered.com to see how I really feel. And I'll be releasing more videos. By the way, lookunfiltered.com, during the COOF time, we were knocking it out of the park. I'm telling you exactly what was happening, what was going to happen, how to prevent it from happening to you, and how to deal with this absolute situation. The members, all the way back then, you guys are real ones. If you're one of those members back then, if you were watching those videos, put a what's up in the chat. I love you guys. Stay tuned for more, all here exclusively on youtube.com/wearechange. More videos coming here your way very soon.